we go. Like any other aquatic predators, they don't look down, they look up.
He's got a lot of head shake. It's just like fishing Max in Tahoe. There you go, looking fish. All right. So we're doing deep water fishing today.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I see a bunch.
Yeah, you just gotta get it on the floor.
Yeah.
Pick it up and drop it back down.
Yeah.
Pick it up, drop it down. If you do regular jigging, it's just gonna come up.
Yeah.
October or something. Everywhere down there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot. There we go. Oh, that line was still slack. It was just like fishing Max in Tahoe. On the vertical jig. That was freaking awesome. I never thought I'd do that with a mini jig. Looks like another bow too. An El Diablo.
That is sexy, yeah.
Now we try different colors though too.
Yeah. Oh. All right. Figured them out. I never in my life thought I'd vertical jig a rainbow. Ever. Like other nice fishing, you know? Chunky bro.
All right, ladies and gents, I want to take a quick break from the action to show you what's going on out there. As always, I'll start off with a raw and reel I'm using. This is a 7'6" ultralight spinning rod, and I have it paired with a 1000 series spinning reel. This is a katana rod. It's a custom rod that's made for throwing mini jigs and drop shotting and spoons, basically moving baits. But any ultralight spinning rod will work in a 7'6" or an 8-foot length, especially if you want to try throwing mini jigs. So you don't have to have a custom setup to get it done. The reel I have on here is a Shimano Vanquish 1000 SSSP. This is a Japanese custom reel. Very spendy, but you don't have to have a custom rod and reel to throw these jigs. Like I said a second ago, any 1000 series or even a 500 series will work. The most important thing is your fishing line. And for line, I have a Sinister Strand premium fiber braid in 4-pound, and I run that up to a fluorocarbon leader of Ronco Power Fluoro in 5-pound. But if you want to try mini jigs or throwing minnows, you can use the 4-pound mono that you have on your bait and weight rod, especially if you're throwing a 16th. It has a little bit more weight, so it's a little bit easier. When you get down into throwing 30 seconds, the real tiny, real light stuff, the 4-pound mono or just regular fluorocarbon probably is going to have a tough time giving you a decent cast. So you're going to want to upgrade to either some real light thin braid like the Sinister, or some 2-pound line like Iser line. 2-pound smoke is a good choice to start off. It's stronger than most 2-pound lines, even though I don't use it very much. But if it's something you just want to try, just get your ultralight setup and make a few casts with a 16th ounce. You'll probably get something out there, get a decent distance with a cast, and you could try working it back. And you might get into the fish. And if you really get into it and really start liking it, then you can look at some of this fancier gear. Now let's go to the bench, and I'm going to show you a lot of the baits that are working out there and how I rig them up. All right, guys, I'll show you some of the baits that we're working out there. We're catching them on mini jigs and minnows, and some of the minnow action you'll see a little bit later in the video. But it started off with the mini jigs. And the one I was catching on real well was El Diablo, and you guys watch the channel, you know El Diablo is one of the go-tos or the closer, sometimes I call it, because it just seems to work everywhere, and we even save it till later because we don't want to get on too many fish. at the beginning. So usually if they aren't biting, we go to old El Diablo, and that was kind of the case here. We couldn't find the fish, couldn't get any bites, so I put on El Diablo, and it worked out. And the other one was, well, this one's a representation. It was Madonna. I just don't have any Madonna mini jigs, but it's a pink and white jig. It's just a brighter pink. This is the Madonna Spartan minnow. But that's what Esteban was having a lot of luck with, was just basically pink and white. And then later in the video, you'll see this one. This is Gold Smoke Spartan minnow, one of my favorites. Usually fish it in clear water conditions. I do real well with this one at Lundy quite a bit, and some other Sierra lakes. But this was the other one that you'll see later in the video that was working well. Now for the leads, there's two different types. And I like to go over this a lot because there's always seems to be a lot of confusion about it. But these are both 1/16 ounce leads, but one's a ball head and one's for a tube jig. And these go inside the mini jigs, and these are what we use to hook up the minnows, the inchworms, or the ball head worms. So it just snugs up to the ball. So I'll show you how to insert these into a tube jig body or a mini jig. And what I like to do is I like to start with the eye of the hook and put that through the bottom of the skirt here real carefully in the tube portion of the jig. So it slides in. So once you get the eye in, you just have to be careful so the eye doesn't rip the rubber of the jig. You just slowly inch it on until the lead is all the way at the top here, and then you just rub it with your finger and pop that eyelid out, and it's good to go. And now there's another way to rig it, which some guys like to do, and that's to go in with the hook first at the top. So since we already made a hole, we try to find the hole where that eye stuck out originally, and also that's where we want the eye to stick out this time. So we find that hole and carefully slide the hook in and guide it through the tube without puncturing it again until it comes out the bottom of the skirt like that. And then we carefully slide the jig over the lead without ripping it. And these are very durable. And you just slide the head down, and it looks just like it did before. And this method is cool because you can, if you aren't using the fly fishing snap clips like I use sometimes, you can remain tied onto your line, and you don't have to retie to put another jig body on. You can just take it off the same way, and imagine there's line attached here, and carefully slide it down. And the jig's fine, and your line is still tied to your lead, so you can put another jig body on. Now with the minnows, I always like it to present it as natural as possible. So you can see there's a little eyeball there, and a rounded part's the belly, and then the back has a bunch of little bumps on it, and that'll be the spine. So I'll start with the hook like this, right in the nose of the minnow, and carefully slide it on. So it's going around the shank of the hook, or not the shank, the bend of the hook. And right when it gets about there, I push the tip of the hook through the spine and snug up that ball head so it looks just like that. So it's as straight as possible, so it's going to swim as naturally as possible for my best presentation. Now, the first thing you need to do, I always say when you're trying to catch fish, is you got to find the fish, right? And we had a hell of a time finding them on this trip. This lake has a lot of brook trout in it, Bear Valley cutthroats, rainbows, and even a few browns I heard have been caught out of there. And usually the fishing is outstanding. Usually everywhere you go, it's easy to find them, and the fish are usually very willing to bite. But when we got out there, we started looking, and even with our fish finders, we weren't seeing very many contacts, which is unusual. The lake hasn't been drained. We haven't heard of a fish kill, any of those things. It was like a ghost town. And we were driving around. We went out to, there's a couple intakes. We fished the intakes. Nothing. We went out to some flats, found some drop-offs, didn't see much, fished them, nothing. It was almost like, we weren't sure if our electronics were working right. But then finally, Esty found some fish in some deep water. We were about 30 or 40 feet, I believe. And they were on the bottom, surprisingly. especially with that cold weather. I didn't think, you know, brook trout are considered related to Arctic char, so they can deal with a lot colder temperatures. So maybe it was a school of brook trout. But he threw out a cast, let it go all the way to the bottom, and started working it back, and he hooked one up, right? So I went over there and started vertical jigging, and then I hooked one up. So first thing you got to do always is find them. Then you got to figure out how to catch the dang things, right? So I was using a 1/16 ounce mini jig to vertical jig, which is not something you typically use. Typically you use something, a jig that's much heavier, because it takes a while to get down to that depth, even at 30 or 40 feet. Like at Lake Tahoe in the summertime, we vertical jig, I believe, with 4-ounce jigs. And you're looking at sometimes 100, maybe even 200 feet of water. You're vertical jigging these trout because they're that deep. So I'll show you the technique and how to vertical jig, because it may come in handy. You never know. Any lake, even local lakes, maybe the fish are deep for some reason, even though it's not typical, and you can get the job done with just a mini jig. All right, so what we're doing is we're either casting out and letting the jig fall slowly all the way to the bottom, or just opening your bail and letting it drop straight from your kayak or float tube or your boat, right? And when it gets to the bottom, the fish usually aren't right on the bottom. And fish, like any other aquatic predators, they don't look down, they look up, right? So I always say, think of the Air Jaws documentaries with the big sharks hit the seals, they hit them from below, right? Well, the trout do the same thing to anything they're trying to attack, right? So what I like to do is let it go all the way to the bottom, so there's no more line coming off my reel, and then I'll crank it up 2 or 3 cranks so it's off the bottom. And then what I do is I slowly raise my rod tip and let it drop. And sometimes I'll jig it a little bit as I raise it. Sometimes you don't even have to, just raise it slowly and let it drop. But you don't want to go too high with it, because you have to remember, this is only a 16th ounce mini jig, and there's a lot more pressure down in the deep water, and it will feel heavy when you lift up on it. It'll feel like there's some moss on it, but there isn't. It's just the water pressure. Well, this little tiny 16th ounce jig, if you raise your rod tip too high, it's going to take a while to fall all the way back down to where you started. So you want to kind of present it so that jig's just kind of raising up and falling just a few inches or maybe a foot, just like that. And also, if you keep your rod tip down, you have more control over watching your line for strikes, because when the fish are going to hit when you're vertical jigging is on the drop. They hit almost every time on the drop. And you can see in this clip, like I raise my rod tip and I lower it down, and you can see right by my reel, my line is still slack, and I realized my line had stopped falling. And that's the other thing you need to watch for. You need to watch your line as it comes up, and it'll get all slack and curly as it's sinking, and then it'll straighten out once it's reached the end of its line, right? But sometimes the fish will grab it and they're just holding on to it during the fall, so you'll see your line all kinked up and it will never straighten out. So that tells you something has happened. There's no ledges down there. There's not a different depth because you're fishing a controlled depth, right? The fish has got it. And that's why you can see I pull up, and sure as anything, I felt some resistance and there was a fish on. So that's basically all you got to do. It's a pretty simple technique. It's actually a really fun technique. I just wish we could have got more on the vertical jig. But it's the first time I've ever done it with ultralight gear. But it is possible. But I know doing it up with the heavier gear at Lake Tahoe for the Big Macs and in real deep water, it's a really, really fun, effective way to catch fish. So just make sure when you're out there looking for these fish, be open to everything. Try something. I never would have thought of vertical jigging for rainbow trout in that deep water, because typically they're not there, but on this day they were. And you'll see later in the video that they ended up moving on us and we had to find them again. So you never know what's going to happen, and just be open to all these techniques, and the more you are and the more you try different things, the more fish you're going to catch.
Yeah. Know what it is? Oh, okay. Yeah, he's pulling pretty good. Oh, there you go. That's a nice one. There we go. He's got a lot of head shake. Shaking his head like a Lahatan. And that gold smoke minnow. Yeah, rainbow. Come here, dummy. There you go, good looking fish.
There you go.
Yep. Now it's happening.
This guy.
Jeez. He likes you.
Whoa.
Nice.
All right, ladies and gents, there you have it. Good few hours at Old Yankee Meadows. We are on our way out, but we always like to stop by there because they have a lot of varieties of fish to catch, and usually the fishing's just phenomenal. But this is the first time I've been there, and it was this slow. But we still ended up figuring them out enough to get into some, and got into a fairly decent bite. But the biggest takeaway from this one is you gotta look, you gotta find them, and then when you find them, then start making your presentations. Try not to stay grounded in one spot, especially if you're on the shoreline or in a boat. You know, I know it's a pain to pull up anchor and all that kind of thing, but if you aren't catching anything, the fish are in the water. They're just somewhere, you gotta find them. And if you can't find them, they're not going to see your bait, and you're not going to catch anything. So just keep looking, and then if you see them down deep, try something like we did. Try vertical jigging. Who knows? You know, try fishing for those fish. Because in my experience, typically when the fish are on the bottom like that, regardless of the water conditions, they usually don't want to eat much, except in this case. So I don't know what was going on with the weather. I don't know if it was hot, you know, the week before we came up, and then it got suddenly cold, because it was really cold when we were up there. Maybe that had something to do with it. I'm not sure, but very, very interesting day, and I'm glad we experienced it, because I definitely learned something, and I hope you guys did too. So definitely be open to those things, and the more you are, the more chances you're going to have to catch some fish. So as always, if you want any of the fine products I use on this channel, there's a QR code right here that takes you to a link tree where you can look at all these products. There's websites and discount codes. You can get up to 15% on all the products that I show here. And the instructions and everything is in this link tree, as well as the description of this video. I have the hyperlinks and all those things in the discount code. So if you want any of the products, definitely take a look or click on this QR code or look in the video description. And they're great products, or I would use them on the channel, and you can get some decent discounts on the gear. So check it out. And with that, when this video comes up, I will be up in the northern tip of the Eastern Sierra, up at Caples Lake, just south of Lake Tahoe. We're really excited. We're going to be fishing for hopefully big browns and big Mackinaw using the super tubes. They also have a lot of rainbow trout, and the rainbows even, I hear, are pretty big in that lake. I went up there last year, I believe, and was just messing around and got into some decent browns and a nice size Mackinaw. And the Sergeant Major even lost an even bigger Mackinaw just doing bait weight. We weren't even fishing that hard, but that lake is beautiful, and it seems like there's a lot of monsters in it. So we're gonna do our damnedest to get on some. So hopefully that goes well, and then lots more Sierra trips planned for this summer, and then me and Esty have a surprise trip coming up. Gonna be something really epic, something we've never done before. We've never been, so look forward to that, and that video coming out in the near future. Well, provided we catch something. But I think we will. So with that, guys, hope to see you out there, and tight lines.